Hello and welcome to the post-race debrief show here live on YouTube from Diriyah, round 2 of season 10 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. I'm joined by Alexa, and today we're going to go over everything that has literally just happened.
Because I honestly don't think today's race result quite tells the story of the race. When you look at it, it was the second largest lead gained by a race leader in Formula E history. Jake Dennis absolutely dominated, and yet it was an incredibly exciting race. It
was. It didn't end up being the race that everybody expected it to be beforehand, and we are going to get into that a lot more in this show. Believe us, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. Of course, we're going to go much deeper on Jake Dennis's win, because that was a commanding win. It says a lot about where they are in the championship in the season. We're also going to talk about John Vergne, because, you know, kudos to where it belongs. Jev was very good today.
He was really exciting, really competitive. His battle with Mitch Evans for the majority of the race was perhaps, I think, the highlight of the race, but I'll let you guys have your opinion on that.
Just another defensive masterclass from that Frenchman. He just knows what to do. He can make his car so wide, especially on a track like this. Kudos to him. Now, Nick Cassidy, an unexpected podium. If you'd asked us maybe halfway through the race, we need to go into that in a lot more detail, because, you know, with those team orders, there's a lot to chat about, Alexa.
Oh, and I'm sure we will, because this is the storyline we were all waiting to blow up this season. I don't think any of us thought we'd have drama quite this early.
For round 2, I know, yeah. So that's just a little tease of some of the things we're going to be talking about in this show, but it's not just going to be us. We're going to be bringing in some special guests, including one that's going to come up in just a minute, Mr. Kelvin van der Linde. You may recognise him. You may know him from last season. He's the App Cooper reserve driver, as well as being on the broadcast last season. But first, let's hear from Jake Dennis, the race winner from today. Here's what he had to say in his post-race interview.
Jake Dennis for Andretti, huge congratulations. Your first win of season 10. 13 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I know. I can only obviously thank these guys down here so much. You know, we've had a difficult start to the season, turned it around and come back and got my biggest win in Formula E, and yeah, it can't be far off the best. But what a race, incredible strategy, and then yeah, the last sort of 8 or 9 laps, I could really give it everything and yeah, create a 13-second lead. And these days don't come very often, and yeah, I get to share it with these guys tonight and try and do it again tomorrow.
I mean, it just seemed that you took your attack mode at exactly the right time, and then you didn't really look back.
Yeah, there was a little debate between me and the team on when we should take it, but ultimately we got it right, and yeah, that was the main thing. You know, it's obviously so difficult to overtake here. You know, Mitch obviously tried to do a do or die move, and thankfully that sort of got dust on his tyres. In the next sort of 3 or 4 laps, he degraded quite quickly, and that allowed me to get away and yeah, have an easy ride in. But yeah, what enjoyment, you know, racing here in Saudi under the nights. And just enjoying every lap. It was so much fun. The track really started to grip up at the end, and we could actually push the cars pretty hard.
Phenomenal performance, reminding everyone that you are a reigning champion. Jake Dennis.
Some words from Jake Dennis at the end of the race there. And now we are joined by the South African stallion himself. I just made that up on the spot. I'm going to go with it. Kelvin van der Linde, welcome to the Debrief live show post-race. Let's just get your opinions. Just take your App Cooper hat off just for a second. As a Formula E fan, what do you think of the race?
It was a wild race. I mean, as you can expect in Formula E, it was very close out there. The general consensus was obviously that a lot of the guys at the end of the race, they had some energy left over, but they couldn't put it down the way they wanted to. So a lot of analysis going on now in the debriefs and so on. You're hearing quite a lot of interesting things regarding that. So it kind of makes sense why a lot of guys probably didn't make the overtakes you probably expected at the end of the race, despite the energy differences. Okay. So it was quite interesting to follow that, and I think going into tomorrow, a couple of changes in the race distance will again make the race a little bit different in a strategic perspective.
Okay, I'm going to ask you straight away, and then Alex, you can chuck some questions in, but attack mode. It was absolutely crucial today, but there was no one correct strategy. We saw various strategies from different teams. I don't think we expected that.
Yeah, not at all. And I think a lot of teams actually got caught out by that, us included at Apt. I think you saw a lot of the teammates that worked very well together. They were the ones moving forward. I think Ollie Rowland made like 8 positions near the end of the race. And it's just really the timing of, you know, once everyone takes that attack mode, are you able to get the gap and clear the field? And it worked out for some. I think there'll be a lot of analysis in terms of statistics overnight. And then, yeah, you come up with a game plan tomorrow. But again, in Formula E, you can't really have a game plan before the race because it's all developing as the race goes on. I mean, our radio was flat out, you know, trying to come up with the right strategy, but it's evolving all the time. You just have
Sure.
to kind of like follow the trends. But yeah, difficult. I think the real takeaway from that is the teamwork. So if you're close to your teammate, I think to really make that work well tomorrow might be the key.
Okay.
I want to jump in because from a driver's perspective, obviously you competed here last year for App Cupra. Turn 18, that final chicane, we saw so much drama there today with overtakes and all sorts of shenanigans going on. From a driver's perspective, what is it that makes that corner quite so dramatic?
I think there's a lot of things. Firstly, it's so dirty offline, the whole track really, to be honest, and it's the only real overtaking opportunity on the track. Nobody's been running here the whole weekend, so we've only had now the first race. I think tomorrow it'll already be a bit better because we've had a couple of attempts at overtakes. I think Mitch Evans was one of the sweepers of the day, really going for it a couple of times. But yeah, there just hasn't been anyone driving on that part of the track, so you can imagine there's low grip there, and any move that you're going to make is high risk, and yeah, most of the time it doesn't pay off.
I like that phrase, one of the sweepers.
I was
of
just
the
thinking
track.
that.
It has multiple uses,
Yeah.
That's great. We've got a bit technical there. Let's just bring it back to the podium. Jake Dennis, John-Eric Vergne, Nick Cassidy. Jake Dennis, what a phenomenal drive. From your point of view, yes, it's a rival team, but you've got to respect a drive like that.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, Jake. I mean, we know his potential. He's the defending world champion, so we know what he can do. But I think it just really showed today how important it is to keep a calm head. He stayed out of all the drama, made his moves when it counted, got those attack modes done early, and then you see at the end of the race, while everyone else is burning up their energy, he's just ticking away, listening to his strategy or the beeps in his ear that he gets, when to lift off and so on, and he just drove away from the field. I mean, absolutely faultless drive. So yeah, couldn't fault him today.
I would like to get your perspective, just to follow up on that, in terms of being a driver and the strategy, because Jake Dennis had a very interesting journey where he went from being, making up the positions, over-consuming, being told he needs to save, to then being 2% up and then having a 13-second margin to lead.
It was impressive to see also in the beginning. I heard his radio. The team wanted him to take attack mode earlier, and he actually declined, said, no, I want to push on, I want to keep going. The analysis we've done now after the race actually proves that going hard early was the better way to go, because a lot of the guys that saved their energy just couldn't put the power down. So it doesn't help you've got 3% more energy, but the tires are overheating, you've got tire degradation coming into play, it's dirty offline. So I think that strategy, you'll see a lot of guys going even harder tomorrow in the beginning of the race, just purely because they can't put down that extra energy that they have to overtake.
Sure.
You mentioned tomorrow then briefly, you mentioned our sweepers earlier and how they might improve the track. What differences can we expect going into tomorrow's race?
Well, again, like I said, the race distance will be one lap shorter, so obviously that means even more energy that they can distribute across the race. And again, I think that'll be really the first couple of laps will be crucial, sorting the guys out, getting cleanly through that phase, and then it's again that game of the attack modes. And I want to see how the teams learn what they have today and put it into practice tomorrow, because I think you really can, especially like Jaguar did it today, if you have two guys near each other on track, you can play that game very efficiently and you can make up a lot of time.
I mean, I asked Nick Cassidy at the end of the race, how's it going to differ with the extra lap, and he said, well, it's just going to be a flat out race. He said pole position's everything. His whole demeanour just changed. He was like, oh great, I've got that to contend with tomorrow.
Well, I guess it's for us even more exciting qualifying, because we know there's so much more on the line.
Yes.
Probably see a lot of drivers take more risks in qualifying tomorrow, maybe going off, maybe risking to either put it on pole or crash it. You never know. I mean, that's the hype of Formula E. Every day is different. It's going to be new strategies and a new way of racing. That's cool.
That's Formula E. I'm going to have to be very rude for a second, Kelvin. Just ask you if you can swap with the man who was top of the podium. Today's race winner, Jake Dennis, in the house.
Welcome, Jake. Come on, Han. How are you feeling?
I'm happy.
Of course you are.
Days don't come like this very often, and we just won by 13 seconds. Like, what the hell? And awesome day.
I mean, also that podium, pretty special. I mean, the fireworks, the lights, everything.
I mean, I'm looking forward to watching that back. I'm just going to slide across straight to that point. And when I was leaving the track yesterday, I was like, man, that podium is awesome. If you get on top of that, like, fair play. And we've done just that. I didn't expect the cars to come up out of the ground.
That moment, mate, it was like
so
Michael
cool.
Jackson in Bucharest in 1994. It was epic. Just came out like a superstar.
I'm sure it looked amazing and it felt amazing.
Great. Well, let's talk a bit about. We spoke in the press conference, but just for the benefit of people that weren't there, we were just talking to Kelvin about attack mode strategy. You said that call, that almost defiance of the team, was what got you the win.
Yeah, I mean, the team have all their numbers, and I understood why they told me to take it, but they didn't realise how fast I was. You know, I could see Jev and Mitch sliding around a little bit more than I was at that stage of the race, so I knew they were pushing quite hard. And then I think when I took the lead and was able to, you know, show my pace, I think they understood why I ignored that, and we almost came out in front of Jev as well, which would have been crazy, but. Yeah, ultimately when Jev retook it, we took the lead again, and I was able to pull off into the distance and take my second attack with no issues.
I actually want to throw it back to Quali earlier on today, because I remember hearing you on the radio saying that you literally put everything into that final lap. Were you concerned when it ultimately didn't get you into the duels, or did you know that you guys had more in the tank coming into this afternoon, or this evening?
I mean, the Jaguar is so good in qualifying, and they're definitely still a step ahead of us. So when I said like that is everything I had, and Mitch obviously went ahead and beat it, I wasn't ultimately surprised, but it was close, and to be close to a Jag was a good step. And if we're close in qualifying, we generally are better than them in the race. It's when they're a long way ahead in qualifying, then it's an issue. But I felt confident coming into this race, and yeah, we showed it.
You know what's interesting is that we've had now two races back to back where the same two drivers have won, just in a different order, but I just don't think that we can count on a rinse and repeat from last season. I think it's going to be a bit harder for you than that.
100%. I mean, even that DS, you know, Jev's had a really strong start to the season. He's had a second and a sixth, so he's definitely up there. He's performing well. I always find Jev, especially, is when he's got the car, he finds like an extra bit. And last year he didn't quite have it, so he's probably a little bit more chilled. Whereas now he's got, you know, a really quick race car, especially in qualifying, and yeah, he's turned it on and showing his talent, like what we all know. You know, he's double champion for a reason, and he did a great job out there today to finish second with an inefficient race car compared to us in the Jag.
Yeah, superb work, mate. But how different is it going to be tomorrow, though? Because slightly different challenge.
Yeah, I don't think it will be a huge amount difference. I mean, qualifying will be ultimately the key. Hopefully our group's a little bit easier, because Group A today was unbelievably hard. We managed to scrape through. But yeah, if we have a slightly easier group, then hopefully we can definitely make it to the duels. And if I start in the front two rows again, then I'm confident we can do what we did today. Maybe not the 13 seconds, but I've got to make it 15.
Well, that's only been done one better in the 10 years of Formula E, so fair play to you.
To be fair, about 5 laps to go, I did think, I was like, I wonder what the biggest margin is. And I was pulling away about like 1.5 seconds a lap at this point. Then it was going to like 2 seconds a lap. And then my engineer was like, let's try and get this to double figures. So I was like, yeah, all right, fair. And then it was 13.2.
Is it a case of just being able to hit all your markers in that sense? Because there's no one in front of you to ruin your racing line, and you hit all the braking zones.
Yeah, but you really have to like remind yourself, and I do it like 5 or 6 times over maybe the last sort of 10 laps, is like you need to still focus. Like you are in a rhythm, but like one or 2 inches like wide, you can just slap the wall and make a mistake. And you know that's what happened to Nick here, but he got really lucky and managed to continue. But I mean, the walls are so close here, and you are like threading the eye of the needle through there, and so you just need to remind yourself. I went for fastest lap, got it, but yeah, it was close.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you,
the time. Go and have some celebration.
I will.
Congratulations.
Too short-lived. You go again tomorrow. There he is. Look at that. Just keep
What a
walking
shot,
a straight
people.
line. I want to see you walk all the way back to your garage. That's perfect. Yeah, now, obviously, kudos to Jake. Some great insight from him there. Now, we need to obviously talk about the other drivers on the podium, starting with Jean-Eric Vergne. We talked about it before the race, the way that he can make his car an A380. Just elbows out, impossible to overtake, despite being low in energy and just literally holding on for dear life towards the end. He just seems to do it every time.
Super, super impressive from him. And I think we haven't really placed enough emphasis on it. And Jake did briefly mention it, but I want to emphasize it more.
Go for it.
The fact that we were talking about only the Jags and the Porsches really coming into this race. That was the competition for the title. All of a sudden, Jev just keeps placing his car up there. If he's trying to have a stealth championship fight, this is the way to be doing it. Keep scoring points, keep getting in the way, and keep making that car an A380.
I mean, it's the championship for him, but for DS as well. They are bringing that fight to the storyline of last year. The Jaguar and the Porsche-powered cars. But let's hear from what he had to say after the race. Here's Jean-Eric Vergne in his post-race interview.
Jean-Eric Vergne, huge congratulations, finishing in P2 in today's race. But just talk us through, I mean, it looked like you and Mitch were really battling most of that race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually starting on pole, you want to win the race, and any other place is a disappointment. But today I say, I'm very happy with the second place because the pace we had in the race was clearly not the one that Jake shown, with his car. And, well done to him. He's been flying during the race. So, yeah, that's honestly the best I could have done today. Looking back last year, where I was out of the points, on both races here in Riyadh, I think we made a huge step forward. And, I'm very happy that the work is paying off. We are catching up. We're not quite there yet, but, we're going to be there. And hopefully, in some races, we'll have everything to beat them. But, right now, I'm very happy with the second place. And, get the points in the championship, improve still a little bit of things on the cars, and maybe fight for more wins later on.
Excellent. Well, it's great to see that this is a huge turning point for you in season 10. Jean-Eric Vergne.
Post-race interview from Jean-Eric Vergne of DS Penske. Now, before we move on to talking more about Jev, here's a reminder that you can get your questions in below into this live stream. We will be reading them out at the end. We'll do a little bit of a Q&A towards the end of this live stream, so make sure to get your voices heard and get your comments in.
If you want to ask us any questions about today's race or anything like that, do let us know. Or if you just want to compliment how good Saunders' hair looks today. If you want to let us know how great it is to see Katie again, I would not argue with that.
Never looks good.
And of course, we are joined now by Katie Fairman. Katie, you've just come from the press conference, you've spoken to our drivers. Jean-Eric Vergne in particular, he had a really exciting day that I don't think we expected.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, following up a freaking race winner is quite something. But anyway, Jean-Eric Vergne had a pretty impressive day, well, a very impressive day. Got himself pole position, his first since Jakarta in 2022, so a long time coming for him. But yeah, managed to get a lead at the start, keep it. Interesting play with the strategy, very much taking that first. I thought we were going to have a similar sort of thing as we had with Pascal Wehrlein in Mexico, where he took that attack mode really early and managed to get the win, obviously. But no, we ended up having a crazy race with lots of different types of strategy. But Jev did a fantastic job. A few little mistakes here and there, but pretty much a faultless performance from him. So
it's interesting because, as Jev said in the post-race, he said even though it didn't feel like the attack mode was potentially nailed in the best way it could be, it really came down to pace. That they just weren't keeping up with it, and when it comes down to the energy towards the end of the race, it just feels a little bit rinse and repeat to last season, and I really don't want that to be the case. I want him to be in the fight.
Totally, and I think he said afterwards, every driver that's here, especially if you get pole, you want to win the race, but he was delighted with second. He said that was the best he could have possibly done, especially, look at Jake, he went off into the sunset. Second biggest winning margin that we've seen in Formula E's 10-year history, which is
amazing.
Crazy. Just missing out, by the way, on first, which was from Puerto Dry in 2015, which is just a couple of tenths out. I know.
Good stat.
Good stat, but yeah, could have nearly been the biggest winning margin. But yeah, Jev did a fantastic job. He's a great defender. We've seen that so much throughout his time in Formula E, and was able to keep those pesky Jaguars behind him.
Actually, before we move on from that, you guys have both just come from the press conference. You've heard directly what our drivers had to say, be it from any of our top three. Were there any interesting pointers, any tidbits that you guys heard, either in today's press conference or in the days preceding it, that you want to tell everyone about? I'll start with Katie and then I will come to you.
Go for it.
Yeah, the guys themselves, obviously keeping their thoughts to themselves. There was a few little discussions. Obviously, I'm not a lip reader, so I can't tell exactly what it was, but you could tell that Dennis and Cassidy were having a conversation. I'm wondering if that is about what happened with Mitch, because obviously Mitch pulled a similar move on Jake earlier on in the race and then did the same with Vergne, and both times it didn't work out. But we say and stress that this track is risk versus reward. Dennis himself was preaching that at the start of the weekend, so it just didn't work out for Mitch Evans today. But Cassidy, to be fair to him, he was very good and said that Mitch should be here instead of him and all that kind of thing. So it's all seeming very nice and harmonious at Jaguar at the moment from that kind of perspective. But I don't know if you want to elaborate on it, Saunders, but we had some pretty spicy team radio from Mitch after.
I do want to elaborate it. We can all elaborate in a minute, but I think in that press conference, Nick Cassidy had his Jaguar TCS racing hat firmly on his head.
Yes,
and I think there's maybe something we could read into that. But before we get into it, let's see what he had to say for himself in his interview after the race. Here's Nick Cassidy.
Cassidy, your second podium this season already for new team Jaguar TCS. Congratulations. But just talk us through some of the conversation that was going on the radio during that race.
Well, firstly, hello to everyone in Saudi Arabia. This is really, really cool, and it's awesome to see an event like this for Formula E, I must say. From my side, I'm really lucky I had a really fast car today. My team were amazing. I made a bit of a wrong choice in qualifying, but with how they support us in the race and in qualifying was really mega, so this one's for them.
It felt like there was a lot of strategy chats going on during the course of the race. Do you think you got your voice heard?
We were actually having some radio issues, so I wasn't sure if I was being heard or not, but the communication to me was super clear, so yeah, they did a great job.
All right, thank you very much. Congratulations. Nick Cassidy.
There you go, there's Nick Cassidy from his post-race interview. Now, you said it at the top, Alexa, of this show, that I don't think anyone expected the team drama to be so soon into the season, but it was there. Maybe, you know, as Nick Cassidy said himself, should Mitch Evans been on that podium instead?
Well, I think there were lots of things at play. Obviously, as you mentioned with the attack mode, Nick took his super late.
Yeah.
Like to the point that I was looking at the clock and thinking, he's not got much time to take this attack mode, it's 8 minutes here. But he managed to work out, and actually really clever play from Jaguar to sort of let Cassidy ahead, Evans hold back the pack, and then there was talk of, oh, well, I'll let him buy at the checkered flag, and so Mitch can get that third place. But obviously it didn't end up happening, as Mitch did go for that move and it didn't pay off. Dropped himself down to 6th as well, which is, you know,
big drop.
It was not good for him. But I'm sure he's probably miffed and going to be annoyed at it, but at the same time, he went for the move, didn't work. It's not like he's damaged the car. It's probably going to be more of a dent to the ego than the actual championships like itself. So,
Go on, after you.
I was actually going to say, so we're all talking about this team radio drama. I heard Mitch's radio at the end of the race where he clearly was not happy with his team. But what was the general dynamic? Where did it go wrong between those two drivers today?
So I don't think, I mean, between the two of them, they were playing a good strategy. Like, what they were trying to do would be a very respectable, a very smart thing to do to maximise team points. They did actually have some team radio issues where they weren't necessarily hearing each other, or as in team to driver, which obviously never helps.
Never.
Interestingly as well, I just remember something Nick said in the post-race press conference when I was congratulating him on the ability to go through that quick turn fast section of the track whilst doing team radio and strategy calls, and he said, well, I actually didn't too well because I hit the wall. Front wing came off.
Yes,
so that looks
I forgot about that.
That looks like it was like a move on someone, but that was self-inflicted.
Oops.
So he's going to learn that lesson there. But yeah, in terms of how that unfolded and could it have been better, of course it could have been better. And the main reason why it didn't work, maybe it was the communications issue, but it's because of the moves Mitch tried to make. Those ones really early on in the race, if they had stuck or he didn't even attempt to do them, they're in a different position, and suddenly Nick isn't that close. So yeah, it's sort of one of those sequence of events where things unfold. Could it have been different? I don't know, but they should both. I mean, Mitch shouldn't be happy, but Nick should be very happy to have 2 races and 2 podiums.
I want to delve into that a little bit more because I think the Jaguar team dynamic could be quite interesting now, because I remember you telling me, or maybe it was you, about a quote from the previous press conference where Nick Cassidy said something along the lines of, this is the first time I felt supported in a team in several years.
Said it again this week, didn't he?
Yeah, which is an incredibly stark contrast to what Mitch Evans was saying at the end of the race on the radio about how he felt like he didn't really hear from his team today.
This is what I mean about the Jaguar TCS Racing hats.
Yeah.
I think Nick Cassidy is an incredibly smart driver, and I don't mean just on track. I think he's got a really good, what do they call it, sandbagging approach, where he can make everyone think he's got the worst area on the grid and suddenly put it on pole.
Yeah.
It's like kind of the Lewis Hamilton effect. I've got no tyres left. Oh look, I got fastest lap.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. But just to kind of further on your point, and then Casey, I'm going to throw it to you for your reaction. But he is smart. And I think in this instance, the way that he's reacted to this and saying, the team had my back, the team were great, this is for them, cut to Mitch Evans, I don't think you guys supported me well in this race. I think there's something else at play there. It's Nick saying, hey, I can be the team guys, I can be the good team player.
Yeah. I'm sure it's got to be on Mitch Evans' mind that 2 races in, 2 podiums for Cassidy, nothing for Mitch. I mean, Mitch has been the golden boy of Jaguar since they joined in season 3. He's had teammates come up against him. None of them have been able to even get close to him. Sam was probably his biggest threat, and even then, he had his moments where he crumbled last year. So to come in and have Cassidy there straight away on top of it, it's got to be having a little bit of a mess in his mind. I mean, I'm not slating, Mitch Evans' mental state. He's a very intelligent guy as well. He's a very strong guy, so he will probably have to bounce back from this and he'll be all right. But it's got to be a little bit of a dent and a little bit of a wobble because he's not experienced that in his Formula E career to date.
Yeah, it's very true. And it does go without saying, though, even though that's a bad result for Mitch, the Jaguar car looks very strong, both at one lap pace, quali, and in the race. They are a dangerous, very competitive team.
The Envisions haven't really, apart from we had, Vergne here last year managed to put it on pole. Where was he in qualifying? In the duels, nowhere. Robin managed to scrape some points in P10, but for them it was like an anonymous race pretty much. We didn't really see much of them. I know that Vergne and France have had to have battery changes this weekend, which is, obviously inconvenient. But when you're looking at how far up the Jags are, I know that they are the supplier team, not the customer, but Envision are going to be scratching their heads and going, what have we done here? Like, they need to be back up the front fighting again.
So we do, we've talked a lot about Mitch, we've talked a lot about Jag. Let's just have a recap of that moment where everything went wrong. The idea where he was up there, ready to go, make the move on Jev, and ultimately left not just out of the podium, but quite significantly down, almost out of the points. Here's how it worked. It's just hard to watch, isn't it? It's hard to watch. Katie, thank you very much for joining us. Your insight is amazing as always, and we're very appreciative of you joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm off to watch some One Republic and work, obviously, as
well.
I mean,
she's not going to work.
Multitasking queen.
I didn't want to be rude, but when some of those comments were coming back, I was like, I'm just listening to One Republic.
Yeah. I'm listening to
Stop and Stare going on right behind us right now. Excellent.
They haven't played my favourite song yet. There's still time, guys. We've got to get on with this.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. Right, Alexa, I think it's time for some fan questions.
I don't disagree. We are going to start off with a question from Carl. How much faster do we think the lap times will be tomorrow now that the track has rubbered in? Saunders?
Oh, it rubbered in, but it's very temporary rubbering in. It's not going to last overnight, especially with the drop in temperature and then the wind blowing the sand around again. It's basically rinse and repeat. The only thing that might change it is if there is a drastic different track temperature tomorrow because of the weather, or if the wind is slightly less than it was today or more than it was today. They're the main things that are going to change it, but it's not rubbered in now. It'll basically reset.
I've done a small readjustment here and I'm about to do another one. Do we think Jev's move was clean enough?
Do we think Jev's move was clean enough?
The one that was under investigation by the stewards.
Yeah, I don't know, like Jev, there are a couple of drivers on the grid that, actually, to be fair, those that were watching the Instagram live from the pit lane earlier, Nick Cassidy was calling Jev the Ram, saying that he didn't realise they were allowing trucks in Formula E. So I guess there's some sort of maybe reputation there.
Perhaps.
But Jev's just a very experienced driver, and he will make it as hard as possible to overtake. And then, knowing the position that he's in with the car and the efficiency, you want to make those positions when you think you can do it. So, yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, the stewards rule, so whatever they decide is fair or not fair.
Next one. Chloe asked us our bold prediction for tomorrow. I'm going to jump in because I actually wanted to give a little shout out to someone. We've been using quite an unfortunate stat this weekend for Maximilian Gunther, who had done every single race here and had never scored a point in Diriyah. Today that changed. My bold prediction, tomorrow, a podium. I think that's bold.
For Max Gunther?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question. Maserati's good little package.
Surprise us.
My predictions are, it's really going to come down to quali, so you can't even really take that much from the race. We should probably mention that Sergio Settecamera was phenomenal today.
Very good, yeah.
Really kudos to him, not just in the one lap pace in quali, but to hold that position for as long as he did, and then really minimise how many he did lose. Very fair play to him. My prediction for someone to keep an eye on tomorrow, not necessarily win, is Sam Bird. Sam Bird made up a decent amount of places today. He's won here twice before in the past. And I think he'll learn a lot from today. Let's just say that.
Up next, we have a question from Crazy Casper. I'd like to know, firstly, what makes you crazy? Tell us next time we do a live stream, please. And then the question is, after a disappointing year in F1 for De Vries,
yes,
can he re-find his talent in Formula E? I mean, this is I'd consider it his home. He's been very successful here. He's coming into a seat and a team with a tricky package. However, Mahindra showed glimmers of pace today. I would not be writing him off completely across the season.
He did. I mean, his own words is that Formula E is his home. You know, he said it's like coming home when he came back here. Yeah, Mahindra, they obviously had a lot of work to make up after last season, but that's the best place to be when you've actually got things to change. When you're a Jaguar or you're an Andretti or you're a Porsche, you've got less things to change. So, yeah, I think we could expect to see a bit more there. I don't think it's out of the question at all.
I have quite a harsh question now. We've been singing Sergio Sette Camara's praises today. We do have to look to the other end of the grid, and Dan Ticktum, his teammate, the disparity between those two cars today was about a 45-second difference. I'm not even sure what it was by the end of the race, but Ticktum was struggling.
Yeah,
Where was that?
I don't know. I'm going to have to chat with him in the morning because, you know, we spoke to him in the pit lane live, and he was actually quite self-reflective, where he said, you know, he said he's got to be honest, but it really hits hard when you just don't know why you're 6/10 off your teammate, and there's clearly something. It's not his
Something's
ability,
not working.
but when you don't know what it is, you just question your ability. So I feel for him, and that race is not going to have helped. But I think more than possible that he could just bounce back.
One final question.
Go on.
Quite bluntly, a word on Sam Bird's new hair.
Fast, capable.
Could we ever see you with the bleach blonde look, Saunders?
Uh,
What bet can we make you to have a bleach blonde hair?
Something ridiculous.
Ooh.
Something like a ERT 1-2 tomorrow.
Please, Dan and Sergio, make this happen.
Yeah. I think that's about time to wrap this show up. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your comments as always. Thanks to Jake, thank you to Katie, thanks to Kelvin. Good little recap of this first round here in Diriyah. We go again tomorrow. Slightly different because tomorrow could be even more flat out from all of the drivers. And if today was anything to go by, we're in for a treat. Would you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Go on, say the magic words, Alexa. Go on, say the magic words.
Season 10, it's on.